First, though, joining me to take a look at some of today's headlines, editor of the Daily Mirror, Alison Phillips, and political editor of the Sunday Times, Caroline Wheeler. And I should say, I am Lorraine. Wasn't that funny yesterday?
Oh, just hilarious.
We were laughing about that. And Alison, I love in the mirror that you've got today that there's a wee cutty out
just,
thing.
Just for people, the clueless people who don't know who you are. I mean, our Prime Minister's done a few things in his time, some pretty heinous things, but this has got to take the biscuit.
Funny. But I think
everybody knows who you are.
No, in his defence, why should he know? Why should he know?
Also take some sort of insight from what we know about the Prime Minister's own viewing habits, which is when he gave that speech to the CBI, he started talking about Peppa Pig.
Yes,
so
true.
Maybe
true.
he's watching.
He might be watching
else.
CBBS or whatever it may be, because obviously.
Well.
But I do think it is a bit, because I was thinking about this last night, and I was trying to think, right, who do I know who doesn't know who Lorraine is? And I couldn't come up with anybody.
No,
like literally no one.
I literally don't expect anybody to know that.
No, I can understand that.
I thought it was so. I just thought it was so interesting. Have a wheel in case you missed it.
Since I was elected,
Lorraine is waiting to take up all the issues that you have brought up in this interview. Thank you very much indeed. Who's Lorraine? Lorraine's a legend.
Okay, fantastic. Well, looking forward to talking to Lorraine.
Is he coming to talk to you, Lorraine? Is he going to? Why you get him on today?
Listen, it's so interesting actually, because we had Keir Starmer on a couple of weeks ago, and obviously for balance, we wanted to get somebody. You know, it would have been lovely to have got Boris Johnson, but obviously, you know, Susanna did that brilliant interview with him, and they couldn't put anyone up today. We did ask, but they didn't. They made themselves unavailable. Which is a shame. Because
it's a real shame, because your viewers are the people who are going to be voting tomorrow.
Indeed.
And they've got a right to know. And I think it's the ordinary people who read my paper, watch your show, who need to be sort of respected by the people who are running the show.
Exactly, and respect is very important, and that is a very important thing. He's not so good, the Prime Minister, as we saw yesterday, when somebody forensic is interviewing him like Susanna, and Susanna wasn't interested in scoring points or being gladiatorial. It was all about getting to the truth and to getting to the heart of the matter, which really was about the cost of living. That was essentially what it was about. And he wasn't particularly great at that, and an awful lot of politicians, I mean, you both know this, aren't good at being human beings and having that emotional intelligence, which I think is hugely important if you're in politics.
Well, it's that sort of cost of a price, the price of a pint of milk.
Indeed,
question,
absolutely.
Where people really speak to what they know about the public, which is, I think, why the kind of whole question about who's Lorraine kind of came to the fore, was because that, in some way, was an analogy with how sort of out of touch perhaps this Prime Minister and this government is. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we're going to hear so much more about the cost of living crisis moving into the autumn, because, of course, we know things are going to get worse.
They are.
And sadly, at the moment, we seem to be talking about lots of other things, but the cost of living crisis has been pushed down the agenda.
No, absolutely. To be fair to Boris Johnson, he went on to give that speech to the Ukrainian Parliament, and that's when he's at his best. You know, that is when he's at his best. He did a great speech.
Yes.
And that's when you see him doing the job well.
Because he's very good at giving speeches. He's a good orator.
Yes.
And that is one bit of the job. But I would argue there's only one crucial part of being the Prime Minister, and that is to look after the people. That is your job. You're there to look after the rest of us while you're in office. And at the moment, this cost of living crisis is not some kind of thing that we just write about in books. It's a real living thing. People's energy bills going up by 800 quid, food bills 400 quid over the year, and every time you go into, we all know now, you go into the shop and you think, crikey, how did that end up being that? In the last week it was that. Yeah. So it's a very real thing. If you go to the shop, if you don't go to the shop and you don't know who Lorraine is, it's not a thing.
Well, of course, and the Elsie, example that was given by Susanna Reid yesterday, which lots of people have picked up on, this pensioner who's basically staying on a bus all day to keep warm. And, of course, we all know people who are making sort of economies all the time. But,
I mean, that's that very
stark.
Yeah, that generation of people who will do that, who will set
And the tricky thing is, he didn't really have anything to offer Elsie, apart from this ridiculous thing about, I came up with bus pass anyway, which turns out it's not even true.
That's what I'm talking about, emotional intelligence, like because any normal person would have said, that's terrible, we need to do something.
But also, he should have done something before now, because we've all known these things have been around for, a good while now, and I think it's going to that point of respecting people. Why aren't we being helped? Why aren't people being helped?
See, what they're saying sort of behind the scenes, obviously talk to a lot of politicians, is, you know, there's a real sense that they're saying things are going to get worse. So they want us to kind of wait until we get to that moment when the budget happens in the autumn, and then they can offer some help. But at the same time, I think they're almost trying to wean us off sort of state support. You know, there is a kind of, there's an acceptance that they can't do everything, and that we've just gone through a pandemic where we spent an enormous amount of money, and, you know, basically paying people's wages through furlough was such a massive intervention that we've got to sort of stop expecting the state to kind of come and pick up the pieces. But when you look at the kind of unprecedented hit that people are taking in terms of their gas bills, their food bills, their mortgages are going to go up. I mean, this is the kind of squeeze that we haven't seen
and it's
for several generations.
Yeah,
and it is the poorest.
And there are things that can be done. So this idea, well, we can't do anything, I mean, that's just rubbish. You know, the whole idea about the windfall tax, we've got a story in the Mirror today about the profits that BP have been making, something like £639 a second. And there are things that we've done. Italy's doing things, France is doing things. There's plenty of things that can be done. It's whether, I think to Caroline's point, they don't want to do them because they're trying to wean us off that support.
It'll be really interesting to see the turnout in these elections, don't you think, this week? It'll be fascinating to see how that goes. I mean, generally, they will, of course, they'll take a hit, you know, of course they will, but how bad will it be? And will anything happen?
I think it's a really important point that you're raising there about how bad will it be, because I think there's always a sense ahead of these big elections that people are trying to kind of build up expectation. So the Tories are desperate for us to think that they're going to have a really, really, really bad set of election results. And, of course, Labour, on the opposite, are sort of really managing expectation to say, look, it's a difficult electoral cycle for them because they did quite well when these seats were last up for grabs in terms of Labour. So actually it's quite hard for them to make inroads. So I think, you know, looking at the analysis today, I mean, some people are predicting that the Tories could lose between 800 and 1,000 seats, but that is absolutely outlandish given the numbers of seats that are out there. So I think we should really be watching carefully the areas, actually, where they're making gains. And lots of speculation at the moment that it is going to be that blue wall rather than the red wall where we're going to see some of the most dramatic hits, which is the south and the southwest.
And Keir Starmer's under a lot of pressure. I mean, he was on earlier on GMB, and he's under pressure over the so-called Beergate and all of that. And again, you know, the forensic Susanna Reid, she had him on the ropes.
Yes, she did. And the good thing that he managed to do today, which he didn't do yesterday when he was on the Today programme, is to really answer that question that everybody's been asking for the last 24 hours, which is about whether or not he's been contacted again by the police. Because we know, retrospectively, that's what the Metropolitan Police did in terms of the Partygate scandal in Downing Street. And he was very clear with Susanna this morning that, no, he hasn't been contacted, and no, they're not expecting the police to start investigating again.
And I just think, as well, on that point, there's clearly an effort being made at the moment to sort of plant this idea in the public minds, like, oh, they're all as bad as each other. And I think we have to just be really careful. I mean, yes, I think he's got questions to answer about that situation in Durham, but we have to compare that on the other side. We've got what would appear now to have been a culture of partying at number 10. We've had more than 50 fixed penalty notices already, and we've got 12 parties. So they're quite different things, and people sometimes have to think not only, you know, what am I being told, but why am I being told it? And I think this is a definite, let's just muddy the waters and confuse everybody.
I just think we deserve better, that's all. You know, we just do. We just do. But
we deserve the truth, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you both very much. Talk to you really soon. Thank you for coming in today. Appreciate it. Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub, and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.